The complete absence of sex can be considered a sexual deviance, everything else is a matter of taste. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips, betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. It is impossible to escape the impression that people commonly use false standards of measurement, that they seek power, success and wealth for themselves and admire them in others, and that they underestimate what is of true value in life. Everywhere I go I find a poet has been there before me. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Where ID was, there ego shall be. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. The mind is like an iceberg, it floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. The ego is not master in its own house. Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. The goal of all life is death. The more perfect the artist, the more completely separate in him will be the man who suffers and the mind which creates. The mind is like a piece of land, the cultivation of which requires ceaseless labor. Words have a magical power. They can bring either the greatest happiness or the deepest despair. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. The virtuous man contents himself with dreaming that which the wicked man does in actual life. It is that we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. The behavior of a human being in sexual matters is often a prototype for the whole of his other modes of reaction in life. The only shame in masturbation is the shame of not doing it well. He does not believe that does not live according to his belief. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. The creative writer does the same as the child at play. He creates a world of fantasy which he takes very seriously. Sexuality is the key to the problem of the psychoneuroses and of the neuroses in general. No one who disdains the key will ever be able to unlock the door. Everything that you do in bed is perfectly and absolutely acceptable, if only both sides enjoyed it. At that moment when a person starts to seriously ponder the meaning and value of life, you can consider him a madman. Ideal, eternal love, purged of all hatred, exists only between the addict and his drug. When people criticize me, I know how to defend myself. But I'm powerless in the face of praise. The first indication of stupidity is a complete lack of shame. A large part of what is real within us is not comprehended, and that which is comprehended is not real. Every normal person is, in fact, only normal in part. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. Sexual satisfaction is the temporary suspension of the miserable feeling of aloneness. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? Masturbation is one of the primary abodes, the primary addiction. Subsequent addictions, alcohol, tobacco, morphine, are only its substitutes. In the small matters, trust the mind; in the large ones, trust the heart. Every man must find out for himself in what particular fashion he can be saved. If youth knew, age could. Experience teaches us that the world is not a nursery. Nothing that is mentally our own can be lost. With words one man can make another blessed or drive him to despair. No one who shares a delusion ever recognizes it as such. Civilized society is perpetually menaced with disintegration through this primary hostility of men towards one another. A woman who lacks sex begins to talk more about sex. Who lacks sex speaks about sex. Hungry talks about food. A person who has no money about money. And our oligarchs and bankers talk about morality. We are what we are because we have been what we have been. And what is needed for solving the problems of human life and motives is not moral estimates, but more knowledge. Originally the ego includes everything, later it detaches from itself the external world. Dogs love their friends and bite their enemies, quite unlike people, who are incapable of pure love and always have to mix love and hate. Public self is a conditioned construct of the inner psychological self. Words call forth effects and are the universal means of influencing human beings. If a woman no longer wants sex, it's a sign that soon she may start questioning her emotional connection with her male partner, reflecting on unfulfilled needs or unresolved issues in the relationship. The profound obscurity of the background of our ignorance is scarcely illuminated by a few glimmers of insight. The energetic and successful man is the one who succeeds in transforming the fantasies of desire into reality. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips, betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. We seek more to take away suffering away from ourselves than to gain pleasure. Rather than living our lives, we are lived by unknown and uncontrollable forces. Love in the form of longing and deprivation lowers the self-regard. The voice of the intellect is soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. Ultimately, after endless rebuffs, it succeeds. This is one of the few points in which one may be optimistic about the future of mankind. The only person with whom you have to compare yourself is you in the past. Dreams are never concerned with trivia.